Hey guys, this is the mind of Lilith, and thank you for joining me today as I take a deeper look into the most recent episodes of Love and Marriage DC, which is part 1 and 2 of the reunion. Okay, we had a short season, so I'm not going to be doing a full episode recap as there are plenty of other content creators who do a great job of this. Instead, I'm going to be focusing on specific segments of the episode that I believe could be used as teachable moments for myself and the audience. So I'm going to discuss each of the characters in the show and what's happened during this reunion. I'm going to start with Winter, okay? Winter's mistake was confiding in Monique and actually believing that Monique was her friend. So essentially, the cast of the show, they've kind of jumped on Winter for the things that she said about the relationships of the people on the show. And I honestly think that, these people want an excuse to be mad at Winter because Winter didn't say anything that bad. I think Winter was ganged up on because she revealed some information that went against the pact that the couples had made on the show. Similar to what I think happened with Tisha, Melody, and Marceau and Martel. I think there was an agreement before the show started not to disclose certain information about the relationships because there are children involved, there are businesses involved, and etc. So I think when Winter started, talking about the rumors that she heard about the couples on the show, it rubbed these people the wrong way. So even though Monique was wrong for playing Run Tell That, right, and instigating drama, I think the cast members have an issue with the fact that Winter would say anything about any infidelity in their marriages in the first place, even though Erana was the one who told Winter about what was happening between her and her husband. I don't think that these women appreciated, number one, Winter talking about that with Monique, and number two, they didn't like the fact that she talked about it in a way that made their husbands look like cheaters, in a sense. So she had the ability to shape the narrative about their marriages without actually being married to these men, so they felt like she was having too much control over public perception of their relationships. And men don't play that more than women, even though women like Crystal Smith, who is married to Neo, like to keep up appearances about their shitty marriages. Men who are married are very particular about their public persona and their reputation. The 10th house is a masculine house. It's opposing the 4th house in astrology, which is the home and family and the mommy. The 10th house is your status, your career, your reputation, your legacy, how people perceive you. Men are very keen on how they look to the public, especially married men who've spent their entire lives constructing this image of an ideal family, okay, of a businessman, of being a good husband and father. They do not want their reputations to be fucked over by anybody. This is one of the reasons why Martel was so angry with Melody. Not because Melody was wrong for leaving per se, but because she put a dent in his reputation, and he's a Capricorn. He's extra sensitive about that. He does not want anybody embarrassing him, even if he's doing embarrassing things himself. Okay, I digress. So the issue that the women have with Winter is not necessarily the fact that they think that she's lying on them. It's the fact that she has the power and the knowledge to construct a narrative on a public platform about their marriages that is beyond their control, right? The women, the husbands and the wives on the show resent that. They don't want anybody to have any control over how their marriage is perceived by the public. Even if it's fake, even if it's whatever. They don't want someone like Winter having the power to dictate how people perceive their relationship. That's the nuts and bolts of it. But her mistake, Winter's mistake, was actually believing that Monique was her friend. Monique is nobody's friend. Monique has associates. Monique has people that she uses to achieve particular goals at a specific time. I don't even know why Winter would still be Monique's friend after this, because Monique instigated the drama. Yes, Winter said some things about these women's husbands. Yes, this is true, right? But Monique put 100 on 10. She instigated mess, but she slithered away by pretending to take accountability for what she had done. She knew she was playing bone carrier. She knew she was putting 100 on 10. Sometimes women gossip among each other, especially among friends or women who they think are their friends, right? This happens all the time. But you don't have to play run tell that and disseminate what I'm telling you in a personal conversation to other people on the show. Monique's excuse was, well, if I didn't say anything and then the cameras were rolling, the people would look at me as if, why didn't you defend anything? No, that wasn't what it was, because Monique could have said, yes, she said this and I didn't agree with it, but telling you guys would have made the situation worse, and it would have given some credence to the rumors. If they're false, you don't even play into them. I didn't tell you guys what Winter said about your husbands because I didn't want what she said to be given any energy. So now they've spent the whole entire season talking about what Winter said about these people's husbands. There's no other drama in these women's lives besides what Winter said. Okay? This show would not have any scenes at all without Winter. Winter is the star of the show, right? So for them to act like she was some throwaway character and, she's not relevant. No, she is the most interesting character on this show. Ashley wants to be that girl, but she's not. Sorry. And neither is Monique, and neither is the Erana. So I did not appreciate the cast jumping down her throat. Yes, she was wrong for saying what she said, but Monique was also wrong for amping shit up and instigating stuff, right? And not diffusing the situation. If Monique wanted to play mediator, she would have found a way to diffuse the negative energy between the women. But no, she wanted things to get popped off because she wanted the show to either get some legs or have some relevancy. She wanted drama for ratings. It is what it is. But she did not do her best as someone who's trying to be everybody's friend to diffuse the situation. She made things worse on purpose, in my opinion, just like she makes things worse when Chris says things to her and, she gets offended for whatever reason, okay? So yeah, there's that. So I like Winter. Yes, she may have been wrong to talk about rumors if she didn't have any receipts herself, or if she was unwilling to produce them, or if she wasn't in the room in a situation. I get that. She was wrong for doing that, but it would not have been as bad if Monique had not broken Winter's trust and acted as if Winter was trying to attack and threaten and denigrate these women's relationships. I think Winter was just popping mess, but she really didn't have any negative intentions towards these people. Monique projected her energy onto what Winter was saying in order to start the drama between the cast members. Yes, you can project your energy onto other people's thoughts, their intentions, their motivations, their objectives, in order to control them and make things work in your favor. I'll discuss that at a later time, okay? So here's the deal. I like Winter. She should come back. Now, Winter was saying that these people were cheating. And then later on in the season, we find out that Ashley and her husband have dealt with infidelity before. Now, some people may say, well, how can you say Winter was wrong for talking about the infidelity of these people's husbands and then say Melody was okay with insinuating that Marcel was cheating on Tisha? The difference between Melody and Winter is that Melody's husband was best friends with Tisha's husband. Then we find out during the reunion that Martel and the mistress and Marceau and Maurice were all hanging out together. Then we find out from Erana that Marceau and Maurice were both with linebackers when she was there because she was sizing up the women that the men were cheating with, right? To compare ourselves to the mistresses. So I'm inclined to believe Erana because Martel also said to Marceau, well, you've been with 20 women, right? Now, he may have been exaggerating, but we all know that Martel will spill somebody's tea if he feels like he's backed in a corner. You're going to talk about my mess, I'll talk about your mess. So, unlike Winter, even though Winter has receipts now, unlike Winter, Melody has more circumstantial evidence to give her the confidence to say that, yeah, well, your husband's doing dirt too, right? Okay, so now on to Erana and Jamie. I really, really like Jamie, right? I don't think he's perfect, but I like his personality or his something about him that I really respect. He's not my type physically. That's not what I'm talking about. But I think that he's very rigid, right? But I think that he needed to be rigid in order to survive in the type of environment that he grew up in. Many Black men who become successful in spite of the chaos and the confusion and the pain and the poverty and the danger that's around them, these men have to be really rigid in order to protect their energy and their minds from outside influences. So if you notice, the men who are really, really successful in life, they're kind of like assholes. They're anal, right? They're very controlled. They're very strict. They're very dominating because they've had to learn to be this way in order to survive and thrive in an unfortunate environment. The environment has more control over the person's mind. In most instances, your environment where you grow up has more control or more influence on how you become than what's going on in the house. Okay, your environment is way more powerful, more influential. This is why there's so many people who are raised in good homes, but if they're in poor communities, right, surrounded by a bunch of men who want fast, easy money, who are hoodlums and who whatever, a lot of those children, especially boys, they become a product of their environment. No matter how much the parents pour into these children, a lot of times these children become victims of their environment, right? They're influenced by the environment. We see so many rappers who grew up in middle class, right? Especially in New York. They grew up middle class. The mom was a nurse. The mom was a professional. Their parents were working, but they still wanted to be part of the streets. The men who can navigate themselves successfully in life without a criminal record, without a murder under a charge, without selling drugs or whatever, these men are usually very rigid and very strict, and they're very oppressive and controlling. I think when Jamie said that he made or created Erana, he should have said he helped to mold her, not create her, because people will get triggered by that. I think that people will assume that because Erana was making 6 figures a year as a civil service agent or working for the government, that means that she was responsible. No, I know plenty of people who work for civil service, and those jobs, a lot of times you can do with your hand behind your back, and they get great raises and whatever. That does not mean you're responsible. It just means you have a good job that is stable. There are so many people that I know making 6 figures a year that are borrowing against their future. They are spending frivolously because I get a check every 2 weeks guaranteed for the next 15, 20 years. I can afford to be wasteful with my money. So now when it's time to retire, I can't retire because I've borrowed against my pension so much that I need to pay into it for a few more years before I can really retire. I know lots of people like that. We see Wendy Williams. She had money and success and prominence before she met Kevin Hunter, but her personal life was a mess. She had codependency issues, drug issues, self-esteem issues, alcohol issues. She just was a mess. I wouldn't be surprised if she had some sort of mood disorder. She could have had mental and emotional problems, and Kevin could have come along with stability, with structure, with rigidity, with protection, with consistency. He's a health food nut. Wendy Williams was eating whatever she wanted to eat, right? I think at one point she went vegan because of the mistress and Kevin Hunter's diet, right? So she wanted to compete with the mistress, and at one point she became vegan too and lost a whole bunch of weight. Kevin Hunter gave her some sort of structure, even though she was very talented and successful in her own right. I don't think that Kevin is the only reason why her life fell apart. She was a mess before she met Kevin. I think she said she was out here sleeping around with mad people, doing drugs, and it is what it is. But she had success and money. And a lot of women equate that to having a high self-esteem, to being disciplined, to being organized. No, it means that you found a lane. Now you're making money from it, but there are other issues that are going to crop up that make it difficult for you to manage your money properly. And I think that's what Jamie provided to Erana. He gave her some structure, some consistency, some balance, some order, and some guidelines. And he's a very rigid person. But I think he does that because he feels like he has to be this way in order to control himself and not be a victim of his circumstance or his environment that he grew up in. Now he can relax. He should be able to relax. But he's like, well, why should I change now? I got as far as I've gotten by being an asshole, by being rigid, by being strict, by being ordered, right? By being, firm and authoritarian. I can see love in what he does though. Like a lot of men believe that, a lot of people think that when a man is strict, it means he doesn't love his kids. No, it just means that he has a specific goal and vision for how he wants his life to manifest. Men do not play with that. A man who's marriage minded, he does not play with his legacy, his money, his marriage, or his children. He does not play, right? So even though Martell was a clown, he was very particular about his image, his legacy, his reputation, his money, and his marriage. And so when Melody dropped dime on him, that whole thing fell apart, and he hated her for that reason alone. Okay? You're destroying my legacy, my Capricorn house, how people will perceive me in future generations. You're destroying my children's house. He did it himself, of course. But in his mind, if Melody hadn't filed for divorce, he would still have everything intact. Okay, it doesn't matter how much you abuse the woman. It don't matter, right? As long as your dream and your vision is executed, it doesn't matter. So that's why Martell's mad at Melody. But I think that Jamie was good for Erana. I do think that to an extent. I'm not saying he was perfect. I'm not saying he was perfect at all. But I can see the way that he loves his children. I can see the way that his children love him, right? I can see him getting emotional about his kids. He doesn't get emotional about nothing else but his children. That's his legacy, 2 sons. And he did what I'm not saying he's perfect. Yes, Erana did the bulk of the nurturing in the household. Fine. But you cannot have everything. You can't have it both ways. You can't say, I want a man that's a provider and a protector, and then get mad when you have to take on the majority of the nurturing role. That's not fair. Yes, he could have done more, but I think he honestly did the best that he thought he could do. He was trying to, manage his own career as well. And on top of that, build success for them, right? With his entrepreneurship. I don't think that Erana had the disposition to be a shark in business the way that she is now without her husband. So he may have had to compromise on certain things as far as child rearing in order for him to execute his vision. And guess what? She trusted him to do that. And he took them to a level of success and comfort and stability that I don't think she could have accomplished alone. Honestly, and some of you guys may be offended by this, but I've seen this so many times. It is not funny. A lot of women who make a lot of money, they can be irresponsible with their finances to the point where they're giving money to this person. They're taking care of mothers and relatives and boyfriends and children, and they're bad with money. So they think that I have a good government job. I have a good, I make 6 figures a year. I'm independent. But their spending habits are atrocious. So then they get to middle age, 45, 50, 60, right? Their bodies are breaking down, but they can't retire because they spent most of their lives taking care of other people and overspending to compensate for their emotional issues. There was an article in the New York Times the other day where this woman talked about essentially like the fact that she can't retire, even though she was making 6 figures a year for over 20 years because she was taking care of other people's responsibilities and she was overspending herself. I think that without Jamie, Erana would be in the same position. I don't think he created her. I think he molded her. And he was very structured and rigid because Erana grew up in an abusive, unstable household. She needed Jamie to give her that structure and guidance, right? She needed Jamie to balance her out. That's why I like him. I don't think Erana has gone downward since she's been with him. I think she's become elevated. She's risen in status. She's become more responsible. I think she's even become more organized. Now, they both work together. Do you know how many men would have abandoned their child if they were disabled, right? That's a hard thing for most men to deal with. A lot of men abandon their special needs children. Not all, but a lot of them do. I'm not saying that Jamie should get extra credit for doing that. No, but he was contributing. He was doing something. He was helping out considering the circumstances. They were both trying to build. But like I said, Erana, I think they did a great job together. They worked well together. I really do think that. I think that the extent of the abuse that Jamie has inflicted on Erana may have been verbal, mental or even emotional abuse, right? And I'm not saying it's okay. I'm not saying that at all. I really am not, right? But, and I shouldn't even say but. Uranus, if you're an irresponsible person, sometimes you attract people who will have to kick you into shape, right? And they may become frustrated. They feel like you can't handle your own business. So they may verbally abuse you sometimes, or they may disrespect you at times. It's not okay at all. But I think they learned how to be in partnership together. I don't think that Jamie had any negative intentions with Erana, because their children will be a reflection of that. You will have babies popping up here and there. They would not have been able to build as much together, in my opinion, for this many years if Jamie was like a vicious abuser like Martell. I don't think so. And maybe I'm wrong about it. It's only season 1. I hope I'm correct. Maybe I'm wrong and Jamie's an asshole, is a demon. I don't think so. I really don't think so. Just the way that he loves his children, you can see that. He's so hard and cold everywhere else. But when it comes to his kids, he's like just a different person. You can tell. So yeah, enough about that. So Monique and Chris. Oh Lord. Chris was like, I'm going to try to do better. I can hear my wife now. I'll try to do better. Oh my God. Yeah, Chris is like a battered husband, in my opinion. He's been emotionally battered to the point where he thinks that everything he does is wrong and all of Monique's complaints are justified, right? So when Chris said, I'm not working, because everybody talked about what they were doing, DJing, clubbing, whatever. They have their own businesses. And Chris said, I don't have a job. And he ain't got to have a job because he's a multimillionaire. And Monique kind of rolled her eyes like, yeah, as if she didn't respect the fact that he wasn't working. I think that's a part of the issue too. She wants her man to have some drive, some gumption, some motivation. She may not respect his domesticated nature, but he needs to have a domesticated nature to put up with her bullshit. Because an alpha male, and I'm not saying he's an alpha, I would say that a type A male would not put up with that. A type A man would not put up with Monique's personality. Okay? A man like Martell would not put up with Monique's mouth, because he'd be like, well, I can find somebody better, right? I don't have to put up with this. I'm the man here. I'm in charge. I'm the boss. I'm the whatever, right? I love Chris because he's such an even-tempered, balanced, fair man. He's very fair. And you need that in relationships, okay? So I think Monique is taking advantage of that. And I think she doesn't respect him because he's not working right now. But she's going to nitpick at him because she's not satisfied with what he's doing in his life. And it's almost like, I'm going to nag you because I don't respect you because you're not doing what I respect. I respect a man who works, who provides, and this, that, and the third. Now, he doesn't have to because he's retired, but she doesn't want him to become domesticated. That's essentially what I think the issue is. One of the issues is that he's comfortable. He's not a dog. Patrice O'Neil, a comedian, said that, and this is not nice, but he made a joke about men needing to fish. He said men constantly need to keep fishing and throwing the fish back into the ocean. But then he said there's usually one fish who jumps onto the boat, flapping around as if, she expects more than just sex, basically. And then the premise of the joke was, he said that men have to keep catching fish in order for women to respect the fact that they can still catch fish. So sometimes a man has to smell like fish in order for the woman to understand that he can still catch fish so she can act right. That's the premise of his joke. Now, Patrice was kind of saying that men have to cheat occasionally to remind women that they can still catch somebody and, maybe they'll act right. Sometimes when you're in a long-term marriage, you take your partner for granted. I'm not saying that cheating is right. It's not. But sometimes when you're in a long-term relationship, like Martell was with Melody, he took Melody for granted for over 5 years. So Melody had to remind him, I'm out. You're not respecting me. You're not valuing me. I am out. So Martell accused Melody of taking him for granted, and then he took her for granted. So he was like, okay, I'm going to cheat because you're taking me for granted. But then when Melody left because he took her for granted, he had an issue. I guess if she would have cheated too, that would have made him even? No? Right? Anyway, let me not get into that. But yeah, when it comes to Chris and Monique, I feel like she has battered him into thinking that everything he does is wrong. When she, probably just resents him for not having a job at this time and not having any aspirations. I think she wants her husband to be a mover and shaker like Erana and Ashley's husband. But the irony is that more than likely, Chris has more money than all of those men. He doesn't have to work for it. They can live off the interest from their investments in their property, for years. So they're good. But I think she doesn't respect that about him. Okay. Now on to Ashley and DJ Quicksilver. Ashley is a very difficult person to get close to or to like. She doesn't trust anybody. She's very defensive. And she has a very nasty attitude in general. That's not because she's a Scorpio. It's just because that's the way that she is. Okay. I think her and her husband are both Scorpios. I think. But I do think that Quicksilver was cheating on her. They've been married for a long time. Over 10 years. Okay. They've been married for a long time since he was in his 20s. I would not be surprised if Winter has receipts on the indiscretions in the relationship. Back to Winter real quick. I get messages in my inbox and my emails from people about Love and Marriage Huntsville that I choose not to talk about because the information I feel is malicious or is unsubstantiated, or these people want to use my platform to paint a narrative about someone they don't like. And I don't want to do that. There's a reason why, I don't jump on every single Love and Marriage Huntsville story. Is because sometimes the stories are either malicious or fictitious, or it's just not relevant to, or not relevant. It becomes redundant and it becomes malicious after a while, right? So I choose not to discuss certain things. That's why I stayed away from the Tisha and the whole criminal background thing, because that's not necessary to talk about. So people were giving me information about it, but I'm like, I don't want to jump on that because why, right? You have to use your discernment to figure out if people are giving you information because they care about the persons or you, or if they want to use you in your mouthpiece to disrespect somebody else or to talk shit about somebody else that they don't like, right? So Winter was right about not sharing this information, but she shouldn't have brought it up in the first place if she wasn't going to talk about it. That's not like Melody, because Melody had some sort of circumstantial evidence that would implicate Marceau in cheating as well. Okay, because her husband and him were road dogs for a long time. And Marceau was helping Martel to cheat. So it's different from Winter, who's getting information from a third party or fourth party or fifth party who's not really in the mix like that. Okay. And and she didn't want to ruin their marriages either. I think Winter was talking about things that were happening in the past that was kind of benign, but pictures and receipts of things that were done and all this other stuff, that's different. Now you have other evidence that could potentially ruin a marriage. And I think Jamie, just to go back to Jamie real quick, Jamie checked Erana about complaining about him to the public to the point where it looks like he's a bad father or a bad person. And I agree with him. I understood why he was frustrated. Monique's husband did not come at her like that, though. Chris did not come at Monique like that. He did not say, I guess he did, but he was a lot more diplomatic about it. Like during the show, Chris did complain that Monique was complaining about him too much and it made him look like a bad guy. Men are very particular about their reputation, and so is Erana's husband, Jamie. I think that Jamie, even though he's not perfect, he is flawed. I think he has done the best that he could in this situation. I don't think he had bad intentions to control or abuse or manipulate or exploit his wife, unlike Martel. That's two different things. So I respect him a lot more than I respect Martel. He's not perfect. I don't expect people to be perfect. It's easy to complain about the things that people do wrong and not acknowledge what they've done right. I can see what Jamie has done right in his marriage. I can see what DJ Quicksilver has done right in his marriage. I can see what Monique, I can see what Chris has done right in his own marriage. I can see that from the male's perspective. Usually, women talk shit about men and husbands and they're all dogs. No, on my platform, yes, I have a lot of stuff to say about the men of Love and Marriage Huntsville, but the men of DC are different because they have built their own wealth and success by their own hand, by their own hard work, energy, and effort. You got to respect that. Doesn't mean that they can do whatever they want to do and disrespect anybody else. No, but I think that they have achieved a sort of a healthy balance. They do consider the needs of their wives to an extent, right? They're working hard for their families. They're not trying to exploit and abuse and take advantage of and manipulate their wives like that. I don't think so. It could be because these are longer term marriages and they've worked out the kinks, that you have in a long relationship. I get that, long-term relationship, but I don't want people to beat up on husbands for making mistakes. It is hard being a spouse, husband or wife. It is really hard. And I will only come down on somebody if I feel like they are intentionally being abusive, if they're enjoying it, if they're being relentless, like Martell was with Melody, okay? But last point about Ashley. First of all the women looked great. I loved Ashley's nails, the gold and the green and the emerald. She looked really, really pretty. They all looked great. I loved Monique's hair. I'm just concerned about traction alopecia. So when you twist and twist and twist your hair constantly, you can cause permanent damage. And her hair looked really, really heavy. It was gorgeous though, but it looked really heavy. It looked like a lot of stress on her hair and her scalp, okay? But the woman looked beautiful. So anyway, the thing I don't like about these reunions is that the reunions usually create more drama to set the stage for the next season. So I thought that everybody had pieced things up. They were taking pictures together. They were going to events together. They had become more cordial, especially Winter and the rest of these women. I thought that she had made peace with them. I think that this reunion was set up to add more fuel to the fire so that the storyline can continue, so that there's an antagonist for the show, right? So Winter has been chosen to be the anti-hero or the antagonist of this show. And I think that happened also because she doesn't have a spouse. She's unprotected, right? So Erana could hide behind her husband, and Ashley could hide behind her husband, and Monique could hide behind her husband, but Winter was unprotected, and I felt like that was unfair. She needs some backup on this show. She needs somebody to have her back and be in her corner. What happened to the other dark-skinned girl with the septum ring and the beautiful hats? What happened to her? Why wasn't she invited to this reunion even for a couple of minutes, I guess? Because Winter was doing, she was handling her business, but 6-on-1, that's not going to work. That is just too lopsided. And I do not think that Winter should trust Monique with anything. I don't think she should talk to her at all. Please stay away from Monique next season if you come back to this show. I think they need her back on the show because without her, this show has no storyline. These people are relatively successful, and there are certain things they will not talk about on this show. So that limits the amount of drama and bullshit that's going to be put on the screen, which is fine. So you need Winter as someone to, stir things up. But she needs some help. She needs backup. All right. All right, guys, I'm going to leave it there. I look forward to reading your comments. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll speak to you soon.